The following is a story attributed to Bram Stoker. It recounts the tale of a man who has temporarily lost his sanity in a small church-run hospital. In the Valley of Shadows was first published anonymously in the June 1907 issue of the Grand magazine, London. It was later credited to Stoker in the compilation Shades of Dracula, The Uncollected Stories of Bram Stoker, in 1982. Whether this attributed story was actually written by Stoker and published anonymously first is up for debate, as the attribution took place well after his lifetime. But the style of writing and voice of the story are indeed similar to Stoker's. The title itself references a line that is repeated throughout one of Stoker's short stories, The Castle of the King. Also up for debate is the nature of this particular story. Was it merely fiction? Or is this a recounting of actual events that Stoker experienced after some sort of accident or fever-induced delusion drove him to temporary insanity? If this is a factual account, it would explain why Stoker wished to have it published anonymously. Either way, you should listen to the story and decide these matters for yourself. The rubber-tired wheels jolt unevenly over the granite setts. Dimly, I recognize the familiar gray streets and garden-centered squares. We stop, and through a little crowd on the pavement, I am carried indoors and up to the high-ceiling ward. Gently they lift me off the stretcher and put me in bed, and I say, "What strange curtains you have. They have faces worked on the border. Are they those of your friends?" The matron smiles, and I think what a quaint idea it is. Then suddenly it strikes me that I have said something foolish. But still the faces are there right enough. Even when I got well, I could sometimes see them in certain lights. One of the faces is familiar, and I am just going to ask how they know so-and-so when I am left alone. For hours and hours it seems, no one comes near me. At first I am patient, but gradually a fierce anger seizes me. Did I submit to be brought here merely to die in solitude and in suffocating darkness? I will not stay in this place. Far better to go back and die at home. Suddenly, I am borne in a winged machine, up into the cool air. Far below, and infinitesimally small, lies the new town, half hid beneath the fluffy smoke. Yonder, clear and blue and glittering, is the Firth of Forth. And beyond the sunlit hills of Fife are the advance guards of the Grampians. A moment of sheer palpitating ecstasy, then a soul-shattering fall into the black abyss of oblivion. I hold Mr. H.G. Wells partially responsible for this little delusion. It is light again, but what is that which prevents my seeing the window? A screen? What does that betoken? A blackness of despair grips me. It is all over then. No more mountaineering. No more pleasant holidays. This is the end of all my little ambitions. This is, in truth, the bitterness of death. Presently a nurse comes with a cooling drink, and making a tremendous effort to look unconcerned, I ask for the screen to be removed. She laughs and folds it up, when I see another screen opposite partially concealing a bed. So I have company. This was a comparatively lucid interval. What a strange place to have texts, right round the cornice of the room, and they are constantly changing too. The Lord is my shepherd, I will arise. Really, this is most irritating. I cannot finish any of them. If the letters would only stay still for a single moment. But what is that below? It is a wide sandy beach with the blue sea beyond. On the top of a pole in the foreground is a... What is it? Yes, a man's head, of course. It was really a hanging electric light, which by some curious means I must have seen in an inverted position. Sister, I am sure that could be worked up into a splendid story. Please, give me some paper and my fountain pen. If I don't write it down now, I shall forget it, just as has happened before when I have thought of things during the night. As a matter of fact, when I was a convalescent, I did want to write not only this particular tale, but a complete account of my visions. Of course, I was not permitted, and now, alas, it has gone to join that great company of magnificent seeming but elusive ideas one has in dreams. Honestly, sister, I must go out for a few moments. The man is in great danger, and I alone can save him. There is a desperate plot against his life. He lives quite close by in one of the 2 houses on each side of this. Sister promises to see about this, and I lie back only half satisfied. Presently, my bed begins to noiselessly move. It goes through the wall into the next house. Room after room is visited, but my doomed friend is not there. The other houses are then inspected in turn, with no result. I have a feeling that he is being spirited away, just in front of me so as to always be in the next house. Sister is at the bottom of this trick, I am sure. Here began that absurd hatred and suspicion of her, which only left me with the delirium. Oh, doctor, I am glad to see you. Really, in a free country it is intolerable that a simple request like this cannot be granted me. And to save a man's life, too. You can see for yourself that I am quite sensible, and very much in earnest. Try me. The doctor asks what day of the week it is. I answer, Scots fashion. Oh, that's easy. If I am the man who came here on Monday, then it is Wednesday. But if I came on Thursday, then it is Saturday. If you will tell me which man I am, I will tell you what day it is. Overcome by this logic, the doctor gives in, but suggests a compromise to which I agree. It is that the 4 neighboring houses be brought in and placed before my bed so that I can make sure of seeing and warning my friend in distress. No, I will not drink whiskey. Surely you know perfectly well that I am a Mussulman and forbidden to drink spirits. You cannot wish me to violate the principles of my religion. Sister assures me that the draught is not whiskey and puts the glass to my lips. In horror, I dash it to the floor. Devil in human form, you tempt me to my destruction. Begone and let me die in the true faith. Of course, it was not whiskey, but something of quite an opposite nature. Weeks later, on recounting this incident, I was reminded of having one day casually read a page or 2 of a novel in which a Mohammedan is tempted to drink wine. It made no impression whatever at the time, but it must have been stored up somewhere. Presently, Sister returns with 3 other nurses and a fresh supply of the accursed stuff. All means are tried, from argument, in which they are signally worsted, to persuasion and gentle force. Suddenly I resolve on flight, and actually reach the door of the room before being overpowered and brought back to the bed. Then I am asked to put my finger in the dose, and prove to myself that it is not whiskey. In this suggestion I see Sister's malicious cunning, so I smell the wet finger, and triumphantly assert that it is whiskey. When they say it is 12 o'clock, and that I am keeping them all out of bed, I answer that they need not stay for me. And anyway, what is that to the loss of my soul? At length I am forced down, and the glass is put to my clenched teeth. I pray inwardly for help in this dire extremity. Lo, a brilliant idea. I will pretend to be dead. I stiffen myself and hold my breath. I can remember no further effort, but I was told afterwards the imitation was wonderful. Even the nurses grew alarmed, and the doctor was sent for. I have a dim recollection of his arrival, and before I knew where I was, he had injected something, which I thought was the whiskey, into my arm. I sit up in bed and glare at them all with concentrated hatred. Then I fall back, heartbroken at my forced abjuration, sobbing. I am suffering for my sin. Sister is stabbing me in the shoulder blade with a red-hot dagger. It was a fly blister, and my skin is very sensitive. I was aching all over. Suddenly, I am alone on a flat desert plain. I am sitting with my back against one of the stone pillars of a huge closed gateway reaching into the sky. In front of me is proceeding a cinematographic entertainment on a stupendous scale. I cannot now remember much about it, but the series was long and of an appalling character. Below each picture was a placard stating the subject of the next one. I had the feeling that they were not pictures at all, but real events in the process of happening. Further, that by answering a question put to me by a mysterious voice, I could bring the series to an end. But, though I knew the answer, it was quite beyond my power to give it. Immediately following my failure to reply, from somewhere behind me a full organ pealed forth, and a choir of voices broke into a mocking song, which embodied the proper answer, and also words of scorn directed against myself. Till recently this song haunted me occasionally, but I have now, I am glad to say, forgotten both air and words. All I know is that it was like a quick chant, and quite unfamiliar to me. When the horrid song was over, I fell into a state of self-condemnation, mixed with helpless expectancy, which was so poignant as to move me still when I think of it. This picture is one of wars and earthquakes and burning mountains. Underneath it are the words, "End of the world." I have a vision of the countless myriads of mankind kneeling in agony on the other side of the gate. A multitudinous murmur swells into an awful shriek for pity. Who am I, O God, that this burden is laid on me? Am I the keeper of that countless host? I cannot answer. Even as I speak, a shudder cleaves the air. A cataclysmal mirage comes into view. The organ booms, and the impish choir begins its torturing refrain. Underneath this picture, there is no placard. The dreadful music ceases, and the horrid scene before me works on in silence. It passes, and then there is neither light nor darkness. The desert disappears. The gateway is no more. The infinite host has gone like the dew of the morning, and I am left in the presence of nothing. The realization is frightful. My brain is whirling. Relief must come. Human nature cannot bear it. Ah, thank God. I am going mad when from somewhere, but whence I know not, comes a light scornful laugh. A satanic voice says,
"Sold again."
The organ swells. The invisible choir sings anew, and the whole series of pictures begins again from the beginning. For a moment the tension is relaxed. God's in his heaven. After all, when like the clang of steel, the voice utters the unanswerable question. Oh, God, I shall speak. The answer is... What time is it, Russell? Russell was the male night nurse, the necessity for whose presence the reader will by this time fully understand. 4:30, sir. Well, I must get up to catch the first train to Glasgow. It is a matter of life and death. Please give me my clothes. Russell endeavors to soothe me with promises of going tomorrow, and so forth, all of which I see through with merciless clearness. In the end, as I threaten to alarm the whole household, I am wrapped up in blankets, carried to an easy chair before the fire, and a screen put behind me. You can't get a train, sir, before 6:30. Excuse me? There's a train at 5:55, and I am going to get it. By the way, are you sure Sister is not about? I thought I saw her round the corner of the screen. No? Then give me some soda and milk. And have you a cigarette anywhere? Russell naturally denied having any cigarettes, whereupon, as he afterwards told me, I proceeded to curse him, his family, ancestors, and descendants together with such copiousness and minuteness of diction that I spoke without stopping for an hour and a half. I fancy Mr. Kipling is responsible for at least the meticulosity of my comminations. Anyhow, the effort having exhausted me, on Russell saying that I had now missed the train, and had better go back to bed to wait for the next, I sensibly agreed. That was the climax, and on awakening some hours later from a peaceful sleep, I found that the crisis was past, and that I was as sane again as usual.